Okay, let's kick off here. So firstly, thank you very much to Ruincast for giving me the opportunity to come to their first ever virtual conference. It's something that we're seeing more and more in the industry today, obviously with the situation. And when they asked me on a topic, I thought I could, do my usual, technical topic, talk about solutions and whatnot. But I thought it would be interesting to put a spin on it in terms of, some tips on working from home, because we're all working from home at the moment, but also about burnout. So sort of combine two topics that I've been talking about a fair bit over the last couple of years and, go from there. So this is going to be a quick 30-minute session. Probably won't last the whole 30, but I really just wanted to take you guys on a bit of a journey, understand current situations, and then give some tips about working from home. So my name, just an actual thumbs up just to make sure everyone can hear me, because I think this is a new session. It's the first one. So we just want to, maybe even in the chat, just kind of say, yes, we can hear you. That would be pretty good there. Let's have a look and see if we got information in the chat just to confirm that you can hear me. All good. There you go. That's very good. Excellent. Some familiar names there. Excellent to see. All right. So my name's Anthony Spiteri. I'm a senior global technologist in the product strategy team at Veeam. But that doesn't matter today because I'm talking to you guys as a general IT guy. So what I wanted to talk about today was talk about the strange times that we're having today. The whole reason why we're having a virtual conference today in this point of time. Talk about burnout and give a bit of a personal indication or a personal story from my own experiences. Give some tips about working from home, from the trenches, because I've been doing that for a little while. And then some deep tips as well, just finishing off with some key tips and some key talking points that I think are very valuable to everyone who might be working from home today. So starting off, these are extremely strange times. We know that. How many times have we heard that over the last, month, 6 weeks now? Maybe at first we didn't really believe it. Maybe at first we were kind of thinking, well, this will all blow over in a couple of weeks, but that certainly hasn't been the case. And, the reason is this little guy. This coronavirus that's come in, creating COVID-19 in a lot of people around the world. And it's this little guy, that's literally neutrons long, has really brought the world to its knees. In fact, today I saw a stat that half of the world's population is in effective lockdown. And that means different things for different people out there, depending on what country you're at. Us here in Australia, even in Australia, we're a large country split across a large area. It even means different things for those that might be living on the East Coast. I live in a place called Western Australia in Perth on the West Coast, and we have different rules to what's happening over East. But obviously we've seen the impact in China initially, and in Central Europe as well, and then America. So we know this is definitely impacting us. But what we want to do is kind of try and spin it, always look at the positives, even though it's very hard to. When we're at home, we've got time to think, our minds wander. So I really just wanted to talk about how we as IT professionals, and if anyone's on here and might be listening later on that isn't an IT professional, just kind of understand how we could deal with this from a stress point of view, how it might lead to burnout, how we protect that burnout, and then go into this whole working from home situation, because for a lot of you, it's a very strange situation indeed. So firstly, I want to talk about burnout, and this has been a massive topic of conversation in IT recently, and mental health and everything has risen to the top a little bit in terms of people are okay to talk about it these days. People aren't keeping it on the inside, which is great. And burnout is one of those topics that has gotten a lot of airplay over the last 3 to 4 years, because in IT, we tend to burn the candles from both ends, okay? And I found this quote from Elon Musk, which I thought was kind of interesting. Work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in 80 to 100 hours a week, right? That improves your odds of success. If other guys are doing 40 hours a week and you're putting in 100, then you're doing the same thing. You know that you'll achieve the same thing in 4 months, what they take to achieve in a year, okay? Paraphrasing a little bit, but suffice to say, this is not only the attitude of someone like Elon, who is obviously extremely driven and successful, but in a way, a lot of us adhere to this in terms of we've got to work hard. It's inbuilt to keep on working hours. And in IT, especially when we really haven't got 9 to 5 jobs, it's very easy to pour in the hours, okay? I don't know too many IT people that do just a 40-hour week, that just do 9 to 5. And I guess we wear it with a badge of honor as well. We wear this completely with a badge of honor, understanding that if we do more, we're seen to be more effective, we're going to get more done. And the funny thing about IT for a lot of us as well is that it's our hobby at the same time. For the majority of people growing up, we got into computers because we liked it. It was a hobby. We wanted to play on those Commodore 64s, those Amiga systems, the early 386s. I might be dating myself now for the younger guys in the audience. Maybe Pentiums and Celerons will go there. And for the guys that are older, maybe I need to go to more the VAX systems. But that said, the point is, it's what we love doing. And as we've evolved over the last 20 to 30 years in our careers, we continue to tinker. It's one of the great things about the V community. It's one of the great things about why we exist and why I'm talking to you today, because we love what we do. But it does have a sinister side in terms of the fact that we become workaholics. And that's not good, because certainly once we become workaholics and we don't look to differentiate ourselves in terms of what is work, what is play, and get that balance, we can typically burn out. And you hear these stories quite often, especially in IT. You hear it outside of IT as well. Certainly I know friends, I've got an example of a friend at the moment who's a lawyer, and lawyers seem to burn out quickly in the same way that IT guys can burn out, in that a lot of them basically don't want to do their jobs anymore. Now they've got the luxury of just breaking free and not actually working anymore. One of my friends has actually done that, taken a 1-year sabbatical, and is pretty comfortable just kind of getting away from it and cutting it. A lot of us in IT can't do that specifically because obviously we have responsibilities and whatnot. But there has been examples of times where I've seen people do that, where they've had to basically quit their job, have sabbaticals, recharging it back into it, right? For me, interestingly enough, I had a really interesting experience. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, when I knew that maybe I had burnt out, or was on the edge of burning out specifically. Was working for a company, not my previous company, but a previous company. We were driving with the family. It was December, to go and see some Christmas lights with the kids. And I was at an intersection. And I remember being at the intersection, pretty busy, and everyone was in the car. But my mind decided to wander. I was thinking about a particular problem. I was looking after websites at that point. I was looking after a hosting platform. I was just trying to work out a problem in my head. And almost automatically, what happened was I just heard my wife say, "Stop, stop, stop." And I found myself in the middle of the intersection after running a red light, pretty much not even looking at what was happening. It was only lucky that the cars on either side stopped. But suffice to say, I had my family in the car. And it really, at that point, made me sit back and think about priorities and that particular moment. I'm sure if I was to speak to a lot of you guys, you would have a similar sort of experience potentially, where you had this moment where you realize that it's gone too far. I mean, I would live and breathe this stuff. And I think it's important to understand that it's still okay to do that. Like we're in IT because it's our hobby, it's passionate, but there has to be a moment where you say, enough is enough. I need a break. I need to start to understand how to actually break away my home life, my personal life, my work life, so it doesn't turn me into this all-consuming being. And it's hard because we do have passion, like I mentioned. We've got motivation, and a lot of us in this industry are successful because we carry passion, enthusiasm for the job, enthusiasm for the technology. We see great technology like Ruincast all the time, and we love what we see. We get invested into it, and that drives the passion. It also drives the motivation to continue to learn, continue to do well. But in doing that, we can somehow lose sight of the fact that we need to step back and take time for ourselves at the moment. Okay, so that is to say, we all need to step back if we feel like we're too close to the edge. If we've had those moments where we're running red lights, hopefully not as dramatic as that, because that was obviously a very dramatic situation for myself. But we've got to make sure that we're okay in that. So how does that all tie into the working from home topic? Obviously, everyone at the moment that's looking and going on this virtual conference today is going to be at home. There's very few people that are working in their offices. Certainly some are, but most of my guys and people that I know in the IT industry are working from home because the lockdown or companies have dictated it either way. But I love this because this is a great example of what it's actually like to work from home. And just to put it into context, I've worked from home now for the last 3.5 years now since joining Veeam, and I hadn't worked from home before that. However, I had done it in parts before at my previous work before that. On the odd occasion where I needed to help the wife look after the kids. So there'd be periods where I did it, but never end to end. And certainly never in a situation like we're in today, where we're basically forced to be home all the time. So the thing about it is you can go, okay, let's get to my desk. Let's do the work. Let's do a 9 to 5. Let's swivel around, end the day, and we're back where we are. Because again, like I said, we love to tinker. We don't separate, work from play, so to speak. I know a lot of people that I've been watching locally and obviously around the world have been trying to get into games, for example, recently to try and break up the day. But it's just so easy to spend all of our time on the computer. And without a doubt, it can mess with your head. The fact that you can get up in your pajamas, go to your chair. In some cases, people are in their kitchen. So not even offices or studies in their own home, just the kitchen, your pajamas, do the work. That's what happened to me. So there'd be days in my first sort of year when I was working from home where I'd come to sort of 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd still be in my pajamas trying to work out what that smell was. I hadn't really worked out exactly how to grasp this working from home thing. So what are my tips for working from home? So what I'm going to go through is about 5 or 6 different tips, extrapolate on them a little bit, and just give you guys some mind share as to what I think is a successful strategy to work from home. And the first one is self-discipline. This is so critical. And I don't think I truly understood what this meant until I was maybe 12 or so months into my working from home concept with Veeam. Now, discipline is great and we all think that we've got it. But I'm sure that most of you at the moment, and this can work both ways, for example, as well. I think there's a discipline in our work that we carry in a general 9 to 5, the discipline that's been ingrained in us since primary school and high school, and then our first years at work to get there, to go 9 to 5, to do that work. That's self-imposed discipline. And that's kind of almost like muscle memory discipline, right? But then when we get into our office environment, our home environment, especially for those that are new to it, it's like, great, okay, I'm at home. No one's really around looking at me. Maybe I can go onto Reddit a bit longer, or maybe I can go to this particular website a bit longer. Maybe I can step away, from the desk and not do my work. So discipline is so critical in terms of laying the strong foundation for working from home. And I'm sure that a few of you already who have been at this working from home due to COVID for the past sort of 5 to 6 weeks are realizing that discipline is so important. Because without it, your day is going to lose focus, you're going to drift, and that can go either way. You can drift into doing almost too much, so you lose that ability to decompress after a day, or you might get lost in your work at the same time. Now, obviously, it's a little bit harder today to actually go outside for a lot of people, unfortunately, at the moment, which is a real shame, and get distracted by the outside world. That's a big part of what I struggled with initially. Going out of my office, going outside for a walk, doing that sort of stuff. I hope my boss isn't listening. I honestly did do all the work in that first year. Rick knows I did that. However, when I started to discipline myself in terms of following structure, now, simply for me, what that meant was actually getting a Kanban board out. You've seen Kanbans around. That was the biggest change that I did, to understand that working from home, you still needed structure, but you needed a way to construct it in such a way that you weren't overdoing it, you weren't overcommitting. And that's certainly what we can do, because when we're at home, number one, we're not catching a bus to work, we're not catching transport to work. We haven't got those buffers at either end to basically shield us from the actual day. So to be able to give yourself structure and understanding what you're going to work on during the day with like a Kanban board or something, or a Kanban mentality, that's actually a really good way to start implementing some discipline in your day. When you have that, when you have discipline, you can start to get into some sort of daily routine. And a daily routine is interesting in itself, because when I'm talking about daily routines, we're not talking about a stringent 9 to 5, right? For me, a daily routine is just what I like to do in the day to break it up. So in everything here that I'm going to talk about links back to each other. So you can't have a daily routine without discipline. You can't have discipline without a daily routine, okay? Now, my daily routine at the moment, and something that I've built over the last 3.5 years, is to firstly get up, not come to my desk, not come to my workplace, but go outside or in the front room, have a coffee. If the kids are here, they're here now, obviously, so have a bit of breakfast with them, talk to my wife, whatever it might be. For those that are living alone, because a lot of you are isolated by yourself at the moment, that could even be as good as getting a coffee, going and having a conversation with someone in the morning, depending on what it is. And that actually leads to something that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But then also for me, the biggest part of my daily routine was being able to break up the workday, not doing a straight hour set of workday, not doing 9 to 5 straight. That is something that's really difficult for us. And I talked about the fact that it's ingrained in us to do 9 to 5, ingrained 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. If we can break out of that, that's a really good start put together with that discipline. So for me, a daily routine is to actually break it up by going to the gym. Now, obviously, that was in the old days before COVID-19. Most gyms today are closed. So what do we do now? So for me, it's really about getting out for a walk, because obviously, you know, and I know a lot of countries are like this, you can still go out and have a walk, break it up in the middle of the day, go out for 45 minutes, an hour. Don't feel guilty about having to, you know, break from your desk, break from the work and go for a walk, because you need that. Because what you'll find is that you will actually work more hours if you're not careful, okay? Nothing wrong with working extra hours as long as the job is done, but the routine helps. You know, gym, dinner, everything like that. It sounds really easy, but daily routine without what I talked about, discipline beforehand, is actually a hard thing to get. Because if you don't have a daily routine, you're going to get days where it's going to be different to the other day and you won't get anything done. Very important. And this one is more important than other. This is an abstract picture, but it's basically thinking about social interaction and human touch to a certain extent, especially in this day and age. But what I found from working from home initially was that I had an immense sense of loneliness, and I wasn't afraid to sort of talk about that a couple of times. When you're sitting in front of a computer and, you know, even if you've got a dog, you know, or a pet, it's still very much an alone time. Yes, we're talking to people. Yes, we're chatting, but you are there by yourself for the majority of the day. And obviously a lot of us are experiencing that at the moment if we're isolated. Even if you've got your family at home, people are locking themselves away, still effectively isolated from the outside world and from this touch. So, you know, no doubt being able to communicate and have this touch is important. And there's no better way to do that than actually doing what we're doing now on video, virtualized conferences, virtual meetings, seeing people. There's nothing more important for a human to see another human being. Okay, we're struggling through this a little bit in this age, but thank God we're struggling through it in an age of technology that allows us to do what we're doing today with this virtual conference that Ruincast is putting on, but also just being able to get together with your mates or your workmates and have that video touch. It's so important. I don't underestimate this. I can't speak to this enough, okay? Even if you're not someone who turns the video on normally, I mean, I certainly wasn't. I was never always prepared. I mean, geez, I've just had a shower and look at me. I'm still looking horrible, right? But a video every time now. Whenever you get on, it's so important to see the other person, because that just makes us feel good as human beings. And the last thing I want to talk about is workspace. This one's kind of an interesting one, because obviously we in IT, we love our gadgets, right? But for those that are probably new to working from home with regards to COVID, and I know a few people out there are still working from kitchens. Some people can't, unfortunately, can't change that, because obviously their apartment setup or their home setup doesn't allow them to. They haven't got a dedicated office. But it's so important to get a space that's for you, okay? This is my particular home setup now. I obviously love it. I've been doing it for 3.5 years. A bit of lighting always helps. But this is something that's comfortable for me, and it makes me work well. Having the monitor set up, having the computer set up, having the right internet, having the right chair. That is hugely important, because obviously at work we're giving this, we take it for granted when we're in office because it's kind of given to us. So if you haven't got this, don't be worried, because I also tend to move to my second office, which is outside on my desk, on my chair outside, and I get to have this great view for most of the year. I'm living in Perth. It's great temperature at the moment. This breaks it up as well. And again, if you can break up your office location and work some sort of routine into that, to like go here in the morning, go back to the main office during the day and come back here in the evening, that helps at the same time. But the key is that you've just got to have a good working environment where you feel like you're productive. Minimal distractions, again, which is very difficult in today's day and age because we've got kids and family around, or partners, or whatever it might be. But minimal distraction, a set work environment, set equipment, that's really important. And then you can even take that elsewhere. Like, this is a great example of me transferring my workplace to the front of the Qantas A380. Remember when we can fly? Wasn't that a great time? You know, so this is also me, you know, rather than working in my chair, I was able to come and actually almost replicate a home working environment. Obviously, I was quite lucky that I was able to get to the lounge on the 380. Again, we're living in great times. When we're able to fly, we can kind of do these sorts of things. But the key part of this is that you've just got to feel comfortable and settled in your workplace where you're actually doing the actual bulk of the work. So again, workplace in terms of setup, obviously a set routine, and discipline. So important. But again, that last thing is human touch. And I want to finish on this. I want to finish on this feeling which I believe most of us would feel like at the moment when we're working from home. Because I know personally this was a big thing to get over. Not only the loneliness, not only the discipline, but the feeling of guilt. Now, we should not feel guilty about taking that time to go and have that walk, to go take time to go and play with the kids if we want to step away from the actual computer, to step away from the work and have a bit of us time. That is so critical at the same time. I can't say this enough. You have to be able to stop the guilt. Again, I'm talking about this ingrained thing that we have in our heads, 9 to 5, bum, head down, bum up. We have to work 9 to 5. That's gone, okay? I don't believe that anyone working from home should feel guilty about taking a break that they deserve. It's not something that's natural for a lot of people at the moment. So please don't feel guilty about that. And lastly, talking about personal growth. It's a great time once we've taken personal time, once we've set the discipline, once we've set that scheme in place, to use this time to grow. Okay, because we're locked at home for a little bit, let's use it to develop some skills. A lot of people have been doing that. There's a lot of free training courses out there. You know, if you haven't had time to go and actually do the tinkering that you wanted to do, now is the time as well. And this is not counterintuitive, by the way, to my first message, okay? Because obviously you might be saying, Anthony, if I do this, how am I going to get away from the computer? Again, it's all about discipline, knowing what's work, separating that, having you time, having the human connection, but also understanding that you can totally use this time for personal growth. To finish off, I think it's important, and I heard this just today, and I think it was great. Charles Darwin said this: it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change, okay? And obviously a lot of us are changing. A lot of us have to deal with change in the last 4 to 6 weeks. Now this probably is taking this quote and, paraphrasing it a little bit and applying it to today. But we are creatures of adaptation. So all of us that are at home, if we're feeling some level of despair, if we're feeling like it's getting on top of us, just remember that we can make this work because we are adaptational creatures. We can change and make it responsive. So that's all I've got for you guys. Hopefully it was informative. Look, enjoy the rest of the day. Again, I want to finish off. Never feel guilty. That's my big takeaway. Understand what you're doing. Never feel guilty, and embrace this time that we've got, because very soon we're going to go back to normal. We're going to go back to the grind, the planes, the offices, all that kind of stuff. So let's kind of enjoy it. Let's embrace it. And thanks, guys. And we'll talk later. Thank you.